The ayes to the right, 306. The noes to the left, 325.
As expected, Theresa May survived the vote of confidence in her government. Her own MPs may hate her Brexit deal, but none of them were ready to commit political suicide for a general election. It's not clear how flexible Theresa May is prepared to be. Jeremy Corbyn has his own problems. Dozens of his MPs are actively campaigning for a second referendum, but he is still reluctant.
This is now the time to put self-interest aside. I have just held constructive meetings with the leader of the Liberal Democrats and the Westminster leaders of the SNP and Plaid Cymru. From tomorrow, meetings will be taking place between senior government representatives, including myself, and groups of MPs who represent the widest possible range of views from across Parliament, including our confidence and supply partners, the Democratic Unionist Party. I am disappointed that the leader of the Labour Party has not so far chosen to take part, but our door remains open.
Earlier, Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn explained why he won't talk.
I'm quite happy to talk, but the starting point for any talks about Brexit must be that the threat of a disastrous no-deal outcome is ruled out, taken off the table, and we can talk about the future of the plans that we will put forward and the future relationship with Europe. But take no deal off the table now, please, Prime Minister.
The task facing her now is as daunting as ever. What kind of Brexit deal can a majority of MPs agree on? And will she be willing to change her red lines? For example, on staying in a customs union with the EU, something Labour would agree to, but many in her own party are dead against. EU leaders say they are willing to talk, but it's up to the Brits to change their position.
I think it's time now to tell our British friends that for the sake of Britain itself, it's time for cross-party cooperation in Britain, as we do here in this Parliament from day one. So to define what a new relationship between the UK and the EU must be, and to redefine the red lines. The red lines that are in fact unilaterally imposed from the beginning by the, well, let me say that the hardliners in the Conservative Party.
It's not clear how flexible Theresa May is prepared to be. Jeremy Corbyn has his own problems. Dozens of his MPs are actively campaigning for a second referendum, but he is still reluctant. So the prospect of a general election has gone away. It's back to trying to fix the Brexit deal, or more likely, forge a new one with cross-party support. But time is running out, and pressure is growing to extend the Brexit deadline of March the 29th. EU officials might agree to do that if they concede the real prospect of a viable plan emerging. So far, there is no sign of that. Simon McGregor-Wood, TRT World, Westminster.
Let's get more on the battle for Brexit with Iain Begg, who joins us now from London. He's a professorial research fellow at the European Institute at the London School of Economics and Political Science. Good to have you back on the programme, Iain. So Theresa May lives to fight another day, but she does have to come up with another Brexit deal by Monday that she can then present to the UK Parliament. Do you think she'll be able to do this?
I think she's very stubborn, Oscar, and one of the difficulties is going to be persuading her to think much more imaginatively about what can be passed through Parliament. As you saw in Simon's reports, Parliament is very divided. What we face in the UK is a dilemma about trying to construct a majority to have a different way from the one that she's put forward so far. She was comprehensively defeated in the House of Commons, and you don't recover from a comprehensive defeat of that scale just by tweaking the existing deal. So the idea that her plan A becomes plan A.11 and will pass in a few days' time, I think is far-fetched. Instead, she needs to try to come up with something much more imaginative, much different from what was already on the table, and that can include potentially having a second referendum.
Interesting. So convincing the Labour opposition was always going to be an uphill battle, but what sort of a deal then can she present that will hopefully win over members of her own party and her DUP allies?
Well, her party is deeply split. There is a pro-Brexit wing of up to 100 members. There are a smaller number of very pro-EU Conservative members, so they are not going to come together. She needs to go across to other parties, and it's something that she's proved very inadequate at doing up to now. She says she's now listening, and all I can say to that is it's about time too.
Theresa May, as we know, has just managed to avoid a general election, but delaying the official March 29 Brexit date is looking like an option that may now be an option of resort, really. Do you think that is what needs to happen, a delay to Brexit?
Well, there are two sides to a delay. The EU27 side and the UK have to agree on it. And the EU27 side is not going to agree to it just to enable the same circus to go on for another couple of months. They would want to see something very different on the table as the reason to justify having a delay. Now, what the UK can do unilaterally is to cancel the application to leave the European Union, to withdraw the Article 50 notification. But that would be an extremely provocative thing to do in British politics, given what we've seen over the last few weeks. So we're sort of stuck here. Until there's a new proposal, you can't negotiate with the EU to have a different Article 50 timetable. And if you don't have the Article 50 timetable, you can't really have the new proposal.
Interesting. As we heard in Simon's story, members of her own party are now openly canvassing the idea of a second referendum. Jeremy Corbyn, the Labour opposition leader, has also said, or hinted rather, that he might be open to the idea of another vote. Do you think that's a real possibility?
It's a possibility, but it's a difficult one for a very simple reason, which is in the British constitutional system, the only way you can call a new referendum is by an act of Parliament which requires a majority in the House of Commons. So we come back to the same quandary. How do you get a majority to do something different from the House of Commons when the House of Commons itself is so divided? I think the potential solution may well be a national cross-party government, and that would mean replacing Theresa May. But I understand that's a very provocative suggestion.
Yes, we'll keep our eyes peeled and watch and wait to see what happens with Theresa May's new Plan B. Iain Begg in London, thank you again for your time.